building was built in 1899 as a fish market, but underwent a major renovation in 1920, becoming the J.W. Brooks Wholesale Grocer. The Brooks family was in the grocery and riverboat business, where riverboats and paddle wheels could pull right alongside this building. They would roll supplies right onto the decks of these boats to be delivered all up and down the river. If you lived on the river in those days, you could walk right down to your riverbank, flag down one of these boats, give them your order, and when they came back to town, they would drop it right off to you. Kind of like a modern day DoorDash or Uber Eats. Today, the Brooks building, the top 2 floors are condos, and downstairs you have a little gelato shop and a clothing store. This next building coming up, this big sandstone building, this is the former location of the Customs House in the 1800s. Where ships could pull into downtown Wilmington, claim their customs, pay their taxes and tariffs, and go on about their business. They outgrew that building and constructed this one in 1919. This is now the Alton Glennon Federal Building, where federal court is still held. And if anyone has seen the TV show Matlock back in the 80s, 90s, you might recognize the federal building because they filmed over 100 episodes in that courtroom. Another TV show filmed at the federal building a little more recently was One Tree Hill. Now, if you're not familiar with it, Wilmington is actually known as the Hollywood of the East Coast, or as some people will call us, Wildywood. There's several production studios here in town, and they continue to film many TV shows and movies all around the Wilmington area. So our most often asked question here on the riverboat is, how did the Cape Fear River get its name? The story we tell is hundreds of years old, but known as the most feasible, which is down at the mouth of the river. There's a set of shoals called frying pan shoals, and they extend out 30 miles straight into the ocean, and they're so hard to navigate, the Coast Guard constructed a light tower there in 1964 to warn sailors of the approach. Our first explorers didn't have the benefit of that light tower, so when they sailed up the coast, getting close to this frying pan shoals area, they started to see the water was getting more shallow and shallow. So they would turn a little bit offshore to try to find some deeper water, but it just kept getting more shallow. And all it would take is some bad luck or bad weather, and these ships would be grounded on frying pan shoals. More often than not, if these boats were going to ground back then, they would be a complete loss along with their crew, because there was no Coast Guard to come save them. So the people sending these boats over from Europe, realizing their ships were not returning, marked on their charts that this was an area to be feared. Years later, when they got closer to the mouth of the river, they thought it looked more like a cape than a river, giving it the name, the Cape to be Feared, and that name has stuck. Of cypress trees that we have upriver, and these cypress trees, when their leaves fall in the water and eventually disintegrate, they release a substance called tannic acid, and that tannic acid is what stains the entire Cape Fear River this golden brown color. It's been referred referred to by historians as the Golden River. And there's also a book written about our region called The Land of the Golden River. Over here on the right-hand side, this is the battleship USS North Carolina. The battleship was built in 1940, commissioned in 1941, and served as a battleship in the United States Navy during World War II. Shortly after the war, the battleship was decommissioned and scheduled to go to the scrapyard. But residents of North Carolina raised enough money to bring the battleship here as a war memorial. Now, they were a little worried about towing this massive battleship up the Cape Fear River, because at the time the depth of the river was the same depth the battleship needs to float. The North Carolina was so advanced for her time, she earned the nickname the Showboat. She also earned 15 battle stars and even took a direct hit from a Japanese torpedo. Now that bridge up ahead of us that we're going to pass here in just about 5 minutes, that type of work, these shipyards all went out of business, with the last one closing in the 1970s. And the tops of these boats that you'll see poking out of the water, these are not the ships that they built, but these are the tugboats that used to operate these shipyards. So it didn't fall into the hands of the Northern forces. And this last zone, again, over here on the left-hand side, just behind this tree. This one is the 6th oldest remaining structure in Wilmington. This home was built in 1795, and it was actually built across the street where you see those condos. This home sat across the street in very bad condition until the 1970s. This home was purchased, restored, and moved to this current location. Now this home sold again, yes. Over here on the right, this is Eagles Island, and it's not named after the bird or the band, even though we saw 2 eagles over there today. But it's named after Richard Eagle, a man who came here in the 1700s to raise rice. Eagle Island was ideal for raising rice back then. It was very low and swampy, just a big rice swamp. Today, Eagle Island, it's not very low anymore and it's not very swampy. That's because all of the dredge material that's pulled out of the Cape Fear River is dumped onto Eagle Island. The Cape Fear River was originally just 12 feet deep. It's now 42 feet deep, all the way down to the ocean. So you can imagine that's a lot of mud and sand and rock that they dumped onto Eagle Island. Now, by deepening the river, we've had more changes than just the depth. The river used to be entirely fresh water. It's now brackish, mixed with salt and fresh. And we used to only have freshwater animals up here. We see dolphins every day, sea turtles, and there's even reports of bull sharks coming all the way up the river. Over here to the left, this big industrial area, this is the port of Wilmington. There's many different imports and exports here at the port. The first material that you'll notice that looks like a big sand dune, that's a big pile of wood chips made entirely out of pine trees. Now that pile is usually much bigger because we can store up to 70,000 tons of these wood chips. A ship will come into the port, get fully loaded on these wood chips, and send them over to Turkey, where they make them into OSB and particle board. These triangle-shaped buildings right here, this is our grain storage. This grain is imported. We can store up to 65,000 tons of this grain. And the grain is cost $12 million each. The port will rent these cranes out for $800 an hour. And for each hour a ship is docked at the port, they spend $1,500 per hour. Now that all sounds pretty expensive, but these are some of the fastest cranes in the world, and they can move over 40 containers per hour, just one crane. And if anyone saw the movie Iron Man 3, you might recognize these big blue cranes because they were used to film a pretty good portion of that movie. I told you all about the port of Wilmington. I told you all about downtown Wilmington. But I haven't told you about the Henrietta, the riverboat we're on today. Cape Fear Riverboats was founded in 1987 by Carl Marshburn, who ran the company with his son until 2022, when a company out of Charleston came in and changed ownership. Mr. Marshburn named the first of his riverboats the Henrietta II, after the Henrietta I, riverboat built in 1818 in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Now that Henrietta I was built by James Sewell, who named it after his daughter, Henrietta Sewell. Gentlemen, we will be docking shortly. And for your safety, we ask you guys please remain seated or just hold on to a rail, as it will take us a couple minutes to get tied up, and I will let you know when it is safe to depart. As you depart tonight, you will notice the crew will have a tip jar placed on the rail of the boat just as you step off. The tour boat industry is a service industry, just like your bartenders and service folk on land, where much of our crew's salary does depend on the generosity of our guests. If you feel like we did a good job today, took you out, kept you safe, you enjoyed the tour, and don't mind leaving a little something behind for the crew, any gratuities are greatly appreciated. We want to thank you for riding Cape Fear riverboats today. It's been our pleasure to have you on board the Henrietta. We hope you enjoyed the tour and enjoy the rest of your day here in downtown Wilmington. All crew, please prepare for arrival.